Amen. Good morning. Wow, it's good to see y'all. My name's Nick, in case we haven't had a chance to meet. I know this is like college football, right? Y'all love college football in this part of the country. I know you love it. But see, I'm more of an NFL guy, right? I'm from a big city. I love college football, so don't throw anything at me. I love it. But I'm from a big city. I'm from Indianapolis. I'm a huge Colts fan. I think being from a big city has something to do with it. But I've always been an NFL guy. And so Super Bowl Sunday's coming up next week. And Super Bowl Sunday's always been like one of my favorite days of the year. Always. It's like Christmas, Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, I've loved it. Even when I didn't know much about football or the game, I still loved Super Bowl Sunday. It was like the one, I could stay up later than usual. My parents usually let me stay up later. I just loved everything about it. The hype, the excitement, the fact that it's the most watched event throughout the whole year. It's Super Bowl. Everybody's watching it, right? The commercials are great. The parties, the food. Come on now, yeah? I have always loved the Super Bowl. And so I'm super excited about this year's Super Bowl. It's going to be a ton of fun. I mean, Bengals, what a great story, right? Who dey? All right. I mean, but what a great story. Two years ago, they were the worst team in the league. They won 2 games. Last year, they won 4. Now they're in the Super Bowl. That's unreal, right? Joe Burrow. I like that kid. I do. I'm looking forward to it. But perhaps the biggest reason why I'm excited about this year's game isn't about who's playing. It's about who's not playing. Am I right? Am I right? Thomas Edward Patrick Brady. Have a seat, son. Man, Buccaneers lost last week to the Rams. In case you missed it, I got a picture for us. We can all just look at this. Can we enjoy this picture? Oh, look at him. Poor guy. I like this one better. We got the next one. Where's that one? Ouch. Ouch, Tom. Thomas Edward Patrick Brady. How many middle names does somebody need to have? Okay, listen. When I look back, I'm a huge Colts fan. Huge Colts fan. If you know anything about the NFL, you know that rivalry. That dude ruined so many of our seasons. So many of our seasons. But it's funny, when I look back over my sermons, I talk about Tom Brady a lot for not liking him very much. You want to know why? Consistency demands respect. It just does. Consistency, it just demands respect. He finally retired at the age of 44. Played 22 seasons in the NFL. There's guys in the NFL who are barely 22 years old, right? He's been playing for 22 years. I mean, he is without a doubt the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. You could even make the argument he's the greatest competitor, greatest winner in sports, period. I mean, what's made him so great is his consistency. This was his final season. He didn't make it to what would have been his 9th Super Bowl appearance. That's unreal, right? And he set a career high in passing yards this year, throwing for more than 5,300 yards. His final season. It's unbelievable. And consistency is something that demands respect. And this, of course, is true in any arena, right? Like think about who we consider to be the greatest, like greatest musicians, greatest bands. Typically, they're not one-hit wonders. Am I right? We don't talk about Hanson anymore. Thing, right? Like, who are the bands that we consider to be the greatest? They're the ones that have staying power. The ones who are able to write song after song that sort of connect with all of that. I mean, this is true of like movie makers, directors, actors, authors. The greats all have staying power. They're able to stay the course. Or if you think back on your own life, your personal heroes, people you admire, people you want to be like, people who have made a difference in your life. If you really think about why it is you admire them, it probably has something to do with their consistency, doesn't it? They were consistent in their character. See, consistency demands respect. And consistency is something that the book of Proverbs or wisdom wants to form in us. If you're just now joining us, welcome. So glad you're here. We've been spending our time together here on Sunday morning digging through the book of Proverbs. And by now, hopefully you know, Proverbs is all about wisdom. We aren't doing like a line-by-line study, book of Proverbs. It really doesn't work that way. Instead, what we're doing, we're kind of spending our time in the introduction to the book. The first 9 chapters form a really rich introduction to wisdom, to what it's all about. The Proverbs, the little witty sayings, they start in chapter 10. But we've been kind of hanging out in the first 9 chapters, sort of pulling out like the main ingredients of wisdom. Because my hope is that when you go back and read it for yourself, you start to notice some of these things. They get repeated. They're talked about in different ways and from different angles. And so we're sort of pulling out like the virtues of wisdom. Week 1, remember we talked about how wisdom wants to give us prudence, which is this sort of curiosity, right? To make us the kind of people who don't jump to conclusions when things feel a little weird, but instead we step back and we get curious. We ask questions. Second week, we looked at what the Proverbs calls fear of the Lord, which is about living with a humble reverence. Humble reverence towards God, towards ourselves, about being willing to change our minds, have our opinions shifted. Last week, we saw that wisdom wants to introduce urgency into our lives, right? Like when it talks about life and death, it's not talking about some moment in the future. It's talking about right now, how we're living right now. It wants to bring the sense of urgency to the choices that we make and how we're actually living our lives. Well, this week is sort of like part two of last week for all our French speakers in the room. But what we're going to see is that wisdom doesn't just want us to make good choices some of the time. It wants us to make good choices most of the time. You can hear that in the passage we just read. In fact, I'm going to read it again, but I want you to be listening for it. Listen for this call to consistency, to staying the course in this passage. Verse 20, my son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them within your heart. For they are life to those who find them and health to one's whole body. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk from your heart or from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet and be what? Steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil. This word keep, did you notice that? It showed up several times in that passage. This word keep shows up more than 30 times in the book of Proverbs. As in, keep my instructions. Keep this close to your heart. And that's just when this Hebrew word gets translated into keep. Sometimes it gets translated into guard or maintain or protect. It's this language of consistency. It's this language of staying the course, committing to the long haul, which I know, if you're anything like me, that's something we all long for, isn't it? To be consistent people. To be people who live in line with our values, with what we say matters most. I mean, maybe another way to think about it is to ask you this. How does it feel? How does it feel when we aren't consistent? How do you feel? Proverbs chapter 25, verse 28 says that a person without self-control, consistency, is like a city without walls. Man, what an image. What an image. See, in the ancient world, a city whose walls are torn down is a city that's been defeated. You ever felt that way? How does it feel when you start something you know you need to keep doing and you don't? Anybody else know what that feels like? Defeated. That's a strong image, isn't it? Same time, a city without walls is a city that's vulnerable to attack. I mean, when we aren't living consistently, when we lack self-control, I don't know about you, but it just opens the door for all sorts of guilt, all sorts of shame. And we can just beat the mess out of ourselves. Am I right? So I think if you're anything like me, we long for consistency, to be the kind of people who can stay the course, commit to the long haul. So that's what I want to talk about this morning. Right? I want to talk about consistency specifically in terms of our habits and our disciplines. My wife, who is by far the wisest person I know, she's rolling her eyes right now, but she is, and she's always listening to something, reading something, and she shared with me this podcast. It was a conversation between Brene Brown, the prophet, Brene Brown, and this guy named James Clear. And he wrote a book a while back called Atomic Habits. Anybody read this book? Apparently, it sold like millions of copies, and I'm just not hearing about it. That's how it works. I live under a rock. But this conversation was so profound. And he said a few things that man, it hit me. It just landed, like the wisdom of what he was saying. But it also reflected so much of what the book of Proverbs is trying to get through to us. Like, for instance, one of the lines, I think I shared this last week, one of the lines that really hit me, he said this: we don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. Whew. I mean, plug whatever other words you want in there. We don't rise to the level of our goals, our ambitions, or our resolutions. How you doing with those? into January, gym's starting to empty out again. Right? We don't rise to the level of our hopes and our dreams and our wishes and our ambitions. No, we fall to the level of our habits, our systems, our practices, our disciplines, our behavior. Isn't that the truth? Man, we got all sorts of hopes and dreams and wishes and intentions, but do we follow that up with our practices, with our habits, with our disciplines? Verse 26 of that passage, give careful thought to what? The paths of your feet. To the habits and the practices, and be steadfast in all your ways. You see, our habits, how we live, that's what shapes our lives. He also said this, thought it was super profound. He said, your current habits, ooh, this one got me. Ouch. You ready? Your current habits are perfectly designed to give you your current results. Ouch. So true. You know, you can't deny the truth of that. I mean, if we want our lives to change, then we have to get honest and intentional about how we are living. Our habits, they're not the only factor when it comes to our circumstances, but they are a big one. Your financial situation is not divorced from your spending habits. Your physical health is not divorced from your eating habits. Your relational health is not divorced from how you function inside of relationships. Are you tracking with me? And so it says to us, give careful thought to the paths of your feet and be steadfast in all of your ways. I mean, this isn't just true on a personal level. It's also true on a societal level. Like if you think about a lot of the problems in society, things that we want to see changed, not only is it about individuals, but it's about our larger systems that we have in place that keep the problems there. Like if you start working with folks in poverty, you start learning a lot of this. There's this thing they often refer to as the cliff effect. And what this is certain government subsidies have a real sharp drop-off. So as soon as somebody in poverty makes a penny over this line, they lose 100% of those subsidies. So there's situations where people get a raise. They're working really hard, right? But they're still needing some help from the government when it comes to childcare, whatever it is. They get a raise. They make a little bit over the line. Guess what? They lose 100% of the subsidies. And so for a lot of them, the amount of money they got in the raise is less than the amount of money they lost from the subsidies. Are you tracking with me? And so for us, even if we want to make any sort of change from a societal level, yes, we have to help people have a better picture for their lives and learn new habits, but we also have to work to change the systems that are keeping them in place. Are you tracking with me? Your current systems are perfectly designed to give you your current results. Man, that's true. Whew, that's true. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about staying the course, creating habits and disciplines that bring consistency to our lives. And there's different types of messages. Sometimes you preach a sermon, they're more inspirational, more teaching. Today's is going to be practical. You okay with a practical sermon? It's like my TED Talk. Welcome to my TED Talk. Glad to have you here. So here we go. First thing, who is greater than what? Who is greater than what? I know I've said this before, but it's worth repeating, particularly when it comes to being consistent and seeing things actually change in our lives. Notice in the book of Proverbs, wisdom is primarily concerned with the heart. Did you catch that? Wisdom is something that takes up residence in the heart. Verse 20 of that passage we just read, my son, pay attention to what I say. Turn your ear to my words. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them where? Within your heart. Verse 23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. See, wisdom doesn't want to inform your mind. It wants to shape your heart. And in the Jewish consciousness, the heart wasn't like just the organ beating in your chest. It was the center of who you are. It's your identity. This is where your character flows from. So wisdom doesn't just want to give you information. Wisdom wants to shape your character. You see, wisdom and staying the course is less about where we're going, what we're accomplishing, and it's ultimately about who we are becoming. And y'all, this is huge. We can't rush past this. You can't just pretend like you got this figured out, because most of us don't. One of the reasons we struggle with consistency is because we tend to get fixated on the what and we don't pay enough attention to the who. And so typically, here's how it goes. Like there's a circumstance in our life. There's something that we don't like. There's something that we're frustrated about. And we want to see that thing change because it's making us uncomfortable, right? There's this thing that we want taken care of. There's this thing that we want God to fix. And so we get passionate. We get desperate. We get frustrated. We start taking our faith more seriously. We cry out to God. to fix this thing. But you know what God wants to do more than that? He wants to fix you. He wants to change you. He wants to fix the thing in you that's creating the thing out here. Are you tracking with me? He wants to shape your character more than your circumstance. And so when we get so fixated on the what and we lose sight of the who, it's only a matter of time before we relapse. That's the truth. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've done this. How many times, it's after the holidays, right? Everybody's pants fitting a little tighter than they used to. And you get frustrated. Right? I've been down this road so many daggum times. Get so frustrated. I'm like, I'm going to lose weight. And I know that we're going to the beach in June. And I want to look good at the beach, right? I want to look good. And so I throw myself into some crazy diet. I'm going to lose 40 pounds before we go to the beach. I've done it a few times. And I'm like looking good. I'm looking like Chris Hemsworth. Not really. No. Let's be honest. If I look like Chris Hemsworth, I'd pay somebody money. I would never wear a shirt. And I would pay somebody money to walk around like spray me with mist, right? So maybe it's a good thing I don't look like Chris Hemsworth. I'm like his shorter, squattier little brother, right? But I mean, I've done it. I've lost the weight, right? Then what happens after the beach? After a whole week of doing whatever you want, what do? You come back and what? You put all that weight right back on plus some. How many of you been there before? And so what I've had to learn to do is like, wait, what's behind this bad habit? Why do you go to food the way you do? Like, what's up with that? This can't just be about getting somewhere and accomplishing something. Otherwise, it's going to still be a part of your life. I'm 38 years old. I'm just now starting to put my finger on where this is coming from because it's hard work. I mean, those of you that you've gone through the journey of recovery, we got a lot of you in our church. Man, I love you. You're such a gift to us. You all know that the substance abuse is just a surface level thing. There's 12 steps for a reason. It's because most of that getting sober isn't just dealing with the bad habit, the substance abuse. It's about a change of character on your way to that, on your way to sobriety. That's where the hard work is, folks. It's getting to the who that's behind the what. Otherwise, there's just this cycle that repeats itself over and over again, and we never experience any sort of consistency in our lives. Now, I see this sometimes with couples. They come to me for marital advice, which I really appreciate that. I respect that. And like, there's some issue in the relationship that's causing discomfort. There's communication issues. There's a bad habit, something to do with the in-laws, right? There's something that happened. There's this incident. Usually it's sparked by an incident. And often the couples want some advice from me on how to deal with the circumstance. How do we fix this problem, this thing right here? That's all that they want to talk about. And the thing I can't convince them is that's the easy part. That's the easy part. There's all these strategies that can help us sort of work through this thing. The real work, though, is there's stuff inside of you and you that needs to change. There's some ways in which you both need to shift and move if we're going to get there. And nobody wants to do that work. They just want the quick advice, right? Just tell me how to fix this thing, but we got to slow it down if we're going to experience any sort of consistency. If we're going to be the kind of people who can stay the course, who can do the right thing, not just some of the time, but most of the time, we've got to allow God to do a deeper work in our lives. And so James Clear, the guy I was talking about, the Atomic Habits guy, he talks about this in terms of identity-based habits. I love it. He says, don't start with the outcome or the goal. Start with the type of person you want to become. And then build a system around that. So like for so many people, let's just use it. I know weight is a big thing in America. It just is. A lot of us, we're not happy with that. Oftentimes we start with, I want to lose 40 pounds. And we come up with some sort of strategy around that, a diet or whatever it is, which is fine. But he says, no. Ask this question. Who's the kind of person that can lose 40 pounds? Who's that kind of person? What are they like? They're the kind of person who doesn't miss a workout, right? They're the kind of person who makes healthy. Do you see what I'm saying? Like start with the identity, the character piece, the formation, and build a system around that. So for me, a couple of practical things that sort of flow from this. Who is greater than what? Now, I've come to understand that doing life God's way isn't about me trying to be something I'm not, but it's actually about me living into who I really am. And so that's sort of changed how I approach some of this. I try and think about growth and obedience to God, not as a shutting off of my desires, but instead I see it as giving myself to my greater desires. Somebody once said it like this, is that our greatest desires are often not our strongest desires. It's true. Think about it. I really want to eat that whole sleeve of Oreos. That's a super strong desire. But if I think about it, there's a greater desire in me. I want to be comfortable in my own skin. I want to feel good about my choices. I want that more. Do you see what I'm saying? So sometimes what's helpful is to stop yourself when you're feeling yourself pulled in some sort of direction. You're going down this road. You don't want to go down. Stop. Wait. What's something I want more than this? What's the deeper desire that I want even more than this strong desire? Are you tracking with me? That's been really helpful for me at times. And at the same time, I want to ask you all this. I can't rush past this part. Who is it that you want to become? That's a big, important question. Who is greater than what, right? It's like, who do you want to become? Because I'm just going to be honest, some of us want to become somebody who isn't really worth becoming. Some of your goals and your ambitions, things you're chasing, they're not worth it, and you're not going to find out until you get it. Who do you want to become? People say things like, be you. That's kind of passionate. Like, be true to yourself. Be your best you. Not if you's a jerk. This is not how it works. Who do you admire? Who do you long to be? Because we tend to live into who we admire. That's why some of us look an awful lot like our favorite news anchor on the 24/7 cable TV. Why? Because it's all you watch. You're so tuned in and you're beginning to reflect them. They say you become like the gods you worship. So for me, I'm convinced. You know what the best me? You know what the best me is? It's the one that Jesus thinks I can be. It's a person of integrity. It's a person of compassion. Person of self-control. But here's what I know. You cannot commit to something you aren't familiar with. And so if you're not learning what it is to follow Jesus, what is the kind of life he invites us into? If you're not taking your cues from that, you're going to be taking your cues from somewhere. And I'm sorry, that's why we got a whole lot of people walking around talking about how they love Jesus, but they don't look anything like him. So be people, you can't live into something you're not familiar with. Are you tracking with me? At the same time, if some of the habits that we develop aren't rooted in helping us, with our spiritual life, being more connected to God, man, some of the changes that we want to see happen in our lives are too big for us. You're going to need help. That's why early on in the recovery process, one of the things you have to come to terms with is that you are what? In need of a power greater than yourself. And so if you're wanting to see a lot of these changes happen in your life, I don't care what they are, and some of your habits aren't involving you plugging into God and taking in some of those resources, I'm sorry, it's not very likely you're going to do it. So again, Lectio 365. How many times I got to talk about that app? 10 minutes a day. Plug into that. It's a great way for you to start a habit, develop it of connecting with God. Y'all out there still? How am I doing? We got to get going. Whew. All right. Here we go. I got some more practical stuff. Let's do this. So one of the ways we struggle with this is because we forget that who is greater than what. Another reason why I think we struggle with consistency is because we forget that consistency is greater than intensity. I'll say that again. We think that intensity, we'll say it this way, we think that intensity is greater than consistency. Like when it comes to making changes in our lives, we have this tendency to think that what we need more intensity. What instead we need is consistency. I love how it says it in Proverbs chapter 6. It says this, go to the ant, you sluggard. The ant, not your Aunt May, but the actual ant. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest. Later on in chapter 30, it says that ants are a creature of little strength, and yet they store up their food in the summer. I love this. When Proverbs wants to point our attention to an animal we can learn from, we can learn wisdom from, it doesn't point to something grand and awesome like a lion. Like, look at that lion, it's intense. No, it points our attention to an ant. You see, what the ant has going for it isn't how much it's able to do, it's how consistent it is. It has what it needs because it stores away a little bit at a time. And it just keeps doing it. Y'all, consistency is greater than intensity. But our culture struggles with this. Man, if we're not out there running the Ironman, doesn't matter. Or think about the stories that circulate, you know? You never hear a story about the lady who ate a chicken salad, you know, a salad, whatever that is, like a chicken with salad with chicken in it. Every day for lunch. You don't hear about that until she loses 100 pounds. And it's like, lady loses 100 pounds. How'd she do it? She ate healthy every day for a year. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, we don't hear stories about that. We tend to overdo it on intensity. And so it's like some of us, we want to become runners. And so we think we got to sign up for the marathon. No. What if you just ran a mile every day for a while? Why don't we just sort of start there? It's true in so many arenas. I mean, even with spiritual practices, some people are like, I want to have a rich prayer life. And so they think, I'm going to start with a 24-hour silent retreat and pray all day. What in the world? I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm praying longer than 10 minutes, I'm taking a nap. Somebody needs to wake me up, right? Like, start small. What matters is not how intense it is, but how consistently can you do it? And so some of us, we just start way too intense, and we burn out because we get disappointed in ourselves, don't we? We didn't do the thing like we said we were going to do. Why bother trying? I quit, right? No, what we need consistency. It's like people who say they want to read 30 books a year. That's a great goal, but you haven't read a book since college. So why don't you start with 10 minutes a day? What if you just read 10 minutes a day? And just start there. And eventually, gradually, you probably can grow into the kind of person who can read 30 books a year. Because consistency, it compounds. Did you know that? It compounds. It builds on itself. Like, you know, the person who reads for 10 minutes today, they're not going to suddenly turn into this genius with all sorts of wisdom and insight. Because they just read for 10 minutes today. It's not like, I know everything. No. But a person who makes time to read 10 minutes a day for 10 years, that's going to make some significant impact in their life. Are you tracking with me? This is how consistency works, how wisdom works. And so Clear, the guy I was talking about, James Clear, he calls it a 10-minute rule. He takes a habit that you're trying to build and he scales it down to something that takes 2 minutes or less to do it first. Start with that. Just spend 2 minutes. He tells a story about a guy named Mitch who lost 100 pounds and kept it off for more than a decade. That's impressive. And it's funny because early on in his journey, he decided he wasn't going to go to the gym for longer than 5 minutes at a time, which sounds silly. But somebody one time said the heaviest weight at the gym is the front door. That's the truth. And so he would drive to the gym, he would get out, he would do 5 minutes of an exercise, and he'd go home. And that's all he would do. You know why? He was mastering the art of showing up. That's what some of us need to do. Just master the art of showing up because a good habit has to be started before it can be refined. We're not saying don't add to it. But what we need those little wins at first, little victories. Because here's the line from the conversation, the podcast that got me. I'm going to put this on Post-it notes, and I'm going to stick it all over my house, because this is one of the truest things I've heard in a long time. Here's what he said. He said, every action we take is like a vote for the person we wish to become. Man, that's rich. Every action we take is like a vote for the person we wish to become. You know, there's all this debate in the world of like social science. Like, how do people change? It's like, do they have to change their thinking first? You know, people think you got to change your stinking thinking before you change your behavior. And then there's people who say this, and I think it sounds just as true. It's like, you don't think your way into a new way of acting. You act your way into a new way of thinking, right? So like, which one's true? For me, that line's really blurry. I don't know. I think they're both true. But here's what I do know for a fact, is when I make small intentional choices that are in line with who I want to be, I find that I slowly begin to believe that that's who I really am. It's like it builds evidence. Because that's the hardest part, isn't it? Especially for some of us who, if we're going to try again, we're trying again. This is something we've already tried before, and we failed. And so what do you often hear? Oh, you're trying that again. Who do you think you are? One of the bravest things you can do is try again. And so what I found is that every action I take that's in line with who I want to be, even if that's not who I am right now, it's evidence. Maybe you are that person. Maybe you can do that. And so we got to narrow it down to these every day. And we got to celebrate. We don't celebrate enough. We got to celebrate the mess out of every little good choice we make. Look at you. You're doing it. Way to go. We don't usually do that till we lose the 40 pounds. But what if every day you catch yourself in the middle of making a good choice and you're like, well done, you. Give yourself a high five. Way to go. You're on your way. That's the part. Every choice is like a vote for the kind of person that you want to become. So practical thoughts, real quick, and then I'm going to let you go. Promise. I'm just going to say this. There's so much more I can say. What we got to do is we got to work hard at making good habits easier and bad habits harder. Make good habits easier and bad habits harder. I've already told you this before, but when I start my mornings with reading, prayer, and workouts, when that's how I start my morning, man, it's just a better day. And I've found that the chances of me doing that are much higher when I make the coffee the night before. Do you see what I'm saying? That's an example of making a good habit easier. Because as soon as that alarm goes off, I'm like, oh, coffee's waiting for me, right? Or you put your workout clothes out the night before. There's all sorts of ways we can make good habits easier for us. Sometimes this means changing our environment. I know a lot of y'all, we talked, it's one of the things I want to do is I want to stop watching so much TV, and I want to have more meaningful conversations, and I want to be less, devoted to screens. Yet if I were to walk in your house, every single room has a TV in it, and all your furniture is pointed right at it. That environment is not conducive for the good habit you want to start. You see what I'm saying? So change your environment. Do you really need that many televisions? Or what if you hid some of them? Right? Put them behind a cabinet. Or what if you turn some of your furniture away from the television so you could actually talk to other human beings? It'd be pretty great, right? This is a way of making good habits a little easier. Make bad habits harder. There's some things we don't need in our house. We just don't need them. Food, drink. Get them out of the house. How many of us, man, we want to be less tethered to our phones? Am I right? And there's times we don't need to be. There's plenty of times we don't need to. I don't care how important you think you are. You don't need to be available all the time. So what if when you're at home, you had a practice of putting your phone somewhere else and not keeping it on you? You'd be surprised how that little bitty tweak, you're making a bad habit harder. You can't just mindlessly grab it, which we do, don't we? Man, I get so sick of that. It's like I'm taking the dog outside to go to the bathroom in the morning, which they do. Why do I have to have my phone with me for that? Why can't I just be outside and enjoy how beautiful it is? Do you see what I'm saying? Put your phone somewhere and leave it there. These are just ways in which we can make bad habits harder for us. So get creative with that. But ultimately, and here's the last thing I'm going to say. I think one of the ways we can make good habits easier is by surrounding ourselves with people who are heading that direction too. People who want the same things. We harp on young people all the time. Be careful about your friends. Pick good friends. You know what? That's true for us too as adults. I'm relearning that right now. Because life's hard. You want to surround yourself with people who want a similar thing out of life. I'm not talking about an echo chamber where everybody looks like you and votes like you and things like that. No, I'm talking about values. Have people in your life who value a similar type of marriage, who want that, who want to make a similar kind of difference in the world, who have similar values when it comes to money. You're going to need people like that at your table. Because I think that's the ultimate habit. We become like the people we hang out with. We spend time around. So again, we got these connectional events coming up this week. Come on, hang out with us. We're going to talk about things that matter. And it's going to make you better. You're going to be better for it. And seek out people who are further down the road than you. There are so many people in this church that are that way. They're further down the road than me. They've done the pastor thing. They've done the parent thing. I jump at every chance I can get to get a lunch with them. Just this past week, I asked a guy out of the blue to mentor me. Super awkward, I know. But because he's somebody I want to be like. He's this amazing guy. He makes guitars, and he's a blacksmith, and he does all these things really well. And I'm such a monkey brain. I'm all over the place. Anybody else like that? I'm so scattered. I have the hardest time being present. This guy seems really good at that. And so I asked him, can I just spend time with you once a month? He said, sure. So I'm going to go to he has a forge where he makes metal and knives, and he's going to teach me how to do that. And I think it's going to be really good for me because I'm putting myself around somebody that I want to be like. Right? So think about that. Who are some people, when you think about who you want to be, they're doing it. They're there. Be around them. Be intentional with that. And if somebody comes to you with a really awkward request, hey, can we hang out? Say yes. Be open to that. Because you might be playing a part and seeing God bring some consistency into their life, which would be pretty amazing, wouldn't it? Can I pray for us? God, I think sometimes the thing we overlook the most, which is probably the most astonishing thing, is that you think we can actually do this. Man, don't let us miss that. In books like Proverbs, read the Gospels of Jesus, you certainly think so. You think we can be these kind of people. You believe it. You believe that we can be consistent, that we can live in line with what we what we value most. We can be people of self-control. You believe that. So, Lord, help us to believe that. Especially the one who's hearing all of this. And I know there's a part of me that's like that, and I had to preach the message. You're hearing all this, and you're like, oh, come on. How many times have we been down this road? You really think you can change? Lord, never let us forget that our hope is in an empty tomb. And you overcome things is what you do, and you do it through us. And so, Lord, give us the courage to try again and to keep trying again. Lord, I pray that you help us to do the hard work of the who, to not just get fixated on circumstances that we want to change, but, man, to really step back and to do some digging. What is it in me that has to change? What's the shaping and the formation that you want to do in my life? Lord, help us be creative as we begin to break that down and to value consistency over intensity. Help us be creative with that. To step back and think, okay, this may not be where I want to be, but this is where I begin. This is where I start. This is the little win that I'm going to go for. Give us eyes to see that. And Lord, I pray for you also give us creativity when it comes to ways in which we can make these good habits easier and these bad habits harder. I pray for those of us that have been rationalized something in our life. We work so hard to convince ourselves that it's okay, and it's not okay. Lord, put your finger on that and help us to be honest with you and with ourselves. This thing's got to go. We don't need it anymore. Whether that's cutting up a credit card, pouring out a bottle, getting rid of some prescriptions, telling somebody that they don't have a place in our life anymore. Man, help us not to rationalize those things. And then, Lord, help us to lean on each other and the people that can model for us what it looks like. People who believe that we can be those kind of people and mirror that back to us. I thank you for all the ways in which you're going to use this word to make us more ourselves, more the people that you created us to be. We love you so much. We thank you for your son, Jesus. It's in his name that we pray. Amen. Amen.